Hi everyone, so T here and thanks for dropping by and watching my video. So today I'm going to be talking about Hearthstone, mainly focusing on the arena guide for the new set packs, which are the Ungoro cards. So these cards were released over a month ago, so I think it's just about the right time to talk about which cards could provide more value in the arena when you're selecting your cards for your specific decks. So hopefully this guide helps you out and let's get on to it. So before we look into the Ungoro cards, here are some quick reminders when you're doing your arena picks. As I've mentioned before in my previous video, so always consider the following. So card stats versus the mana cost. So always look for value stats versus mana cost. Then look into card effects versus value in board. So look into the battle cries, the taunt, death rattles. How much values can these effects bring to the board? The next, look into synergy effects. So if you're picking elementals, beast, or adapt effects cards, make sure to check if you can actually trigger them. So if you have to, then try your best to add cards that will contribute to the synergy. Then lastly, your deck curve. So remember to try your best to get the range of 40% 1 to 3 cost cards, 30% 4 to 5 cost cards, and 30% 6 and up cost cards. Remember that if you have a lot of cards in the higher cost level, let's say maybe 50% or more, that can be a bit troublesome in terms of getting control on the board. So make sure to balance it out. So now let's look into the neutral card preferred picks for the Ungora set. So first off, for the Fireplume Phoenix, I would pick definitely because of the Battle Cry, deal 2 damage. Unfortunately, the stats are quite poor for the mana cost, but overall, it's going to be able to trade off maybe at least 1.5 to 2 cards, hopefully. But worst case scenario, 1 is to 1, but that's good enough. Now next, we look into the Gastropod and the Giant Wasp, mainly because they have poisonous effects and they have Taunt and Stealth. Now, the good thing about these two cards is that they're not 1 HP minions, they're 2 HP minions. And we're playing in Arena, so it's not that common for your enemies to have deal 2 damage spells or maybe AoE spells. So these things have more chances to last longer on the board. And the better thing is that if they see these things on the board, it'll break their plan on what they want to play next. So that's gonna be a lot of mind-boggling plays that will force your enemy to do something else apart from what they planned in the first place. Now next we look into the taunt minions in the common section. So we have the Tar Creeper, Nesting Rock, and Giant Mastodon. They're good mainly because they're taunt and they have good stats for the taunt. 3 cost for a 3/5 minion Tar Creeper, definitely pick it out. Nesting Rock 4/7 and a potential taunt minion, definitely pick it out because not many 5 minions can take out a 7 HP minion. It has to trade in maybe at least 2 minions to get this thing off the board. Now for Giant Mastodon, maybe even 3 cards required to take out. Unless they have a removal card, they will be forced to trade in at least 2 to 3 cards to take out the Giant Mastodon. Now for the rare cards, my most favorite card is the Vicious Fledgling. It looks very innocent and simple. It's 3 costs for a 3/3 HP minion, but if you manage to have it survive and hit the face of your opponent, the adapt ability here is quite fantastic, mainly because if you manage to get Wind Fury, you can hit the enemy twice at the same time, and you can adapt. Maybe you can get Stealth, Divine Shield, or even get the immunity adapt thing. And this card can snowball if the enemy has no way of removing it. So definitely a great card to pick. The next would be Stonehill Defender, mainly because you're able to discover a taunt minion. The stats wise for a 3 card 1/4 is not that good, but it can hold long enough. 1/4, it's not that easy to take out. May take maybe 2 minions or may take a hero power spell and a minion to take it out. But the value here is that you're getting another taunt minion from this specific card, which is good enough. Now next, Volcanosaur, very strong mainly because of the adapt twice. So potentially you can get immunity and you can get maybe additional damage, additional HP, or maybe even poisonous or taunt. This card can, save you many times if you manage to drop it on the board, maybe low HP, and you manage to drop it and get taunt and immunity, then it'll hold the board and it'll help you survive. It has saved me a few times, so definitely a must pick, in my books. Now next we look into the Servant of Kalimos. It's a decent card for the cost, but what you're going to be looking after here is that you're going to be able to discover an element. Now, in my experience, it's a bit difficult to trigger, mainly because it requires an elemental synergy, which is, sometimes you can get a lot of elementals offered to you in the arena picks, but sometimes there's none. So it's a bit of a risk, but if you do manage to get the battle cry triggered, the value there is of course worth it. Then now we're looking into the epics. So for Charged Devilsaur, it's worth it in a sense that you drop it, it has charge, it destroys any minion that you can try to you would want to take out. So the value is there. So I would more or less probably pick it. The next would be Blaze Caller, one of the probably the best cards in the Ungoro set. But the only downside here is that you need to draw an elemental and cast it before you can cast the Blaze Caller. Because the deal 5 damage is insane. You can practically trade 5 cost minions when you're casting Blaze Caller. Definitely a strong card, but you need to have elementals to trigger it. So, it's a bit of a risk, but for me, I would always try to pick it, and I will try my best to get another elemental to make it work. Now, next would be Bittertide Hydra. This card is quite strong for the cost. But the downside here is that, of course, every damage this minion takes, it deals 3 damage to your hero. The worst case scenario here is that you get hit by a volcano, by the volcano spell of the Shaman, which can potentially kill you. So, but that's not common, so I would still pick it mainly because of the cost. The downside is not that much to be worried about, unless of course you're facing a Shaman, then you know maybe you can just surrender directly if you cast this minion. Next, we have Primordial Drake. So this is good enough mainly because it has AoE effect, deals 2 damage to all other minions, and it has a very heavy stat, which is 4/8 taunt. So it's good enough, it can hold its own, it can clear out minions on the board, and it needs a lot of work to take out. So definitely a must pick. Next will be Tortolian Primalist. This one is a bit of a risk pick. But if I'm offered other epics in the list over the Tortolian Primalist, I'll pick everything else before I pick the Tortolian Primalist. Mainly because the spells that you choose is a bit of a risk, and even if you do pick a good spell, it may, potentially hit a random minion, which is not good. But overall, in terms of value, yes, there is potential, but it's more of a gamble, in my opinion. Now, next, the only legendary that I would recommend for neutral cards would be at least the Trailblazer, mainly because of the Ungoro pack that you can get from her. So it has a lot of value. So definitely a must pick if you're offered that card. Unless of course there are better legendaries that's offered to you, then pick those. But if none, then definitely this is a good pick. So now we're looking into class card preferred picks. So these are the cards that I feel that are more or less a good pick for Ungoro set. So I feel that the Mage, Paladin, and Priest have the best cards being offered in this set. So let's look into those. So first off, the Mage, we have the Glyphs. So by default, if you look at the description, discover spell and reduce its cost by 2. And we all know that Mage has a lot of very good spells. So definitely a must pick if you see this spell offered to you in the arena run. So next, the Flame Geyser. Main reason why I want to pick this is, of course, the value. So 2/2, 2 mana for 2 damage. Then you have a 1/2 elemental in your hand. It has synergy with elementals, so if you do manage to pick out some elemental cards that requires synergy, then definitely this card will help you out. The next would be Arcanologist. Main reason is that it can draw you a secret card that you may have in your deck. Of course, you may not have it, But by default, the stats is good enough for a 2-cost card, which is a 2/3 minion. So it's good enough. But if you have secrets, then it's even better. So it's a good pick. So next would be Meteor. What can I say? Deal 15 damage to minion, deal 3 damage to adjacent minions. Definitely a must pick. Automatic removal to any card or any minion cards that's put on the table, except for those that can't be directly hit by spells. Now next will be Mana Bind. So I feel this card has a lot of potential for Arena. I've used this card many times as a mage, and it has saved me quite a number of times. Mainly because of the effect that it does. It copies a spell and makes that cost 0. So what if the enemy cast Free from Ember? That's an 8 cost. It's a free spell for me. Or any kind of removal cards, then I get a free removal. That's good enough. So it has a lot of potential for Arena. Definitely pick one. At least one is good enough. And I'm sure you're gonna have a good time with this card. So next will be Pyros. So Pyros, it's not the best legendary out there, but of course there's value in this legendary, mainly because you get a 2/2, then you get a 6/6, then you get a 10/10. But of course, if there are better legendaries offered, then definitely pick those. But if not, then Pyros is not a bad pick. So it's a good card. The next, we're looking into Paladin. So we have the Hydrologist. So Hydrologist discovers you a secret. So it's a 2/2 card for a 2-cost card, which discovers you a card. So that's good enough for me. So it's a good enough card. The next is Spike Reach Steed. Definitely a must pick card. It's very strong because it gives you taunt, then it gives you another taunt minion. And in Arena, taunts are very valuable, mainly because there's not much spells really going on around in Arena. So next would be Dino Size. Same reason as Spike Reach Steed. Most enemies would not assume that you would have this card. And sometimes they would leave your Silverhand Recruit alive, then you can just cast this and destroy them. So it has happened to me. I lost a number of games mainly because I didn't expect the enemy has Dino Size and killed me instead. So next would be Vine Cleaver. So it's a value card in a sense that you get 2 Silverhand Recruits every time you hit with this weapon. So the value of control is there. That's why I would pick it, but of course it's not the top priority if there are better weapons than this, mainly because of the cost. It costs a bit much for a 4 damage weapon, but the value I guess can potentially help you out. But if there are better cards offered, then definitely pick those. Now next would be the legendary Sunkeeper Tarim. So what can I say? The card is awesome. It turns all minions into 3/3. If you have the board and the enemy doesn't have it, then it's an auto win for you. It's definitely a must pick if it's offered. It's a good card. So next for Priest, we have the Crystalline Oracle. So it's a 1 mana 1/1. It gives you a copy of a card from your opponent's deck. It's good enough for the cost, and for the stats it's okay. For the effect, definitely way good. Next would be Radiant Elemental. So it's a 2/3 card for a 2-cost card, which makes your spell cost 1 less. So what can I say? It's a good card. Definitely a good pick. The next will be the 8 mana Free from Amber card, which is discover a minion that costs 8 or more cards. So potentially you can get a 9-cost card or a 10-cost card, and most of those cards are legendaries. So yes, definitely it's a good pick card. Next would be Tortolian's Shell Racer. It's a poorly statted minion, but it's the taunt, and it's a 2/6 taunt. It's not that it's not that easy to take out, mainly because cards on the 4 cost don't really have 6 damage. So next we're looking into Shadow Visions, probably one of the best priest cards in Ungoro set, mainly because it helps you discover a copy of spell in your deck, or it's a free duplicate spell. So it's a good pick. Now next will be Lyra the Sun Shard. Now this can be both good and bad. It really depends on how your deck is built. If your deck has a lot of spells, then definitely Lyra has a lot of value. But if you don't have much spells in your deck, then Lyra has really no value at all. And for the stats, it's not really that good. So you have to consider your card deck before you start picking Lyra. So If you have a lot of spells, then definitely pick Lyra, but if none, then don't pick it. So now let's look into Rogue, Hunter, and Warlock. So for Rogue, first off, we have the Valspine Slayer. Definitely a very good card. It's like an Assassinate card with a 3/4 body on the board. So definitely a must pick if you see it. The next we have Hallucination, so discover a card from your opponent's class. The value there is very good. For the cost, it's well worth it, so definitely it's a good pick. Next we have the Obsidian Shard, so the value here is not that good, mainly because the cost is a bit too much for the 3 damage weapon. But based on my experience, it has saved me quite a number of times, so that's why I'm recommending it for a pick. But of course, if there are better cards out there, then pick those. And lastly, for Mimic Pod, it's draw a card, then add another copy of it. It's a good value card, but not the top priority. So if there are better cards, again, pick those. Then if not, then you can pick this. So now let's look into Hunter. So we have the Raptor Hatchling, which is a 1 mana 2/1 card and a death rattle of shuffle a minion, a 4/3 minion into your deck, which is quite good for a 1 mana cost card. So definitely a good pick. Now for Tolvir Warden, now it's a 5 mana 3/5 card. For the stats alone, it's very poor, but the effect is quite good if you have, a number of 1 cost cards. But if you don't have 1 cost cards in your arena deck, then definitely don't pick Tolvir Warden. Now next we have the Crackling Razor Maw. It's a 2 mana 3/2 card. Stats alone is already good enough, so it's already a good enough pick. The Battlecry effect is just an added value, so it adapts a friendly beast, so that's good enough. So it's not a bad pick. Next, Jeweled Macaw, probably the best card for Hunter, so mainly because you get a random beast into your hand. So the value there is enough. So you have a 1 mana 1/1 that gives you another card, so a good pick. Next, Grievous Bite. Now, main reason why I put it here is because there's not much AoE damage effect Hunter has. So if it's offered, it's, you have to consider it because you can't remove things effectively if you're going to rely on the Hunter class AoE cards. There's not much out there. So definitely something to consider. Now, lastly, we have the Swamp King Dread. So if it's offered, it's definitely a good value card. It's a beast. It's 7 mana cost. It's 9/9 stats. Well statted minion. Then the effect is the next is Warlock. We have Corrupting Mist, which is a 2 mana card. Corrupts all minions on the board. It's an okay card if you don't have any good removals in your deck. It can help you remove some strong minions or at least remove control on the board if your enemy is overwhelming you. So it's a good enough card to pick. Next is a Tar Lurker. It's technically a 4/7 5 mana card, definitely a good statted card and taunt, so it's a good pick. It's like Nesting Rock, so yeah, it's a good card. Next we have the Ravenous Paradox. So Valkyrie is destroy a friendly minion to adapt twice. The effect is quite good. This adapting twice gives you more value for this card for the mana cost. So if you have something that can, like a trash minion that you can destroy, then definitely this card is well worth it. So next we're looking into Warrior, Druid, and Shaman. So first off, for Warrior, we have the Molten Blade. So this is a very good card. It can potentially give you some very good weapons. So yes, definitely pick this one out if it's offered to you. So next we have the Direhorn Hatchling for 5 mana 3/6 card taunt. It's good enough. It's like Fen Creeper with the death rattle of a 6/9 card with taunt into your deck. So that's good enough. Definitely a good pick if it's offered to you. Next will be Explorer Ungoro. So this card has a lot of potential, but it's also a big question mark. So I don't know if it's really good to pick this card or not. But since this is Arena, it can be both good and bad. So I don't know. I may pick it, I may not pick it. It's controversial. So next we have Tarlord. Definitely a very good pick for a 7 cost 5/11 card. Definitely really strong. So if you have it, get it. It's a good card. Now we have King Mosh. So it's a 9 mana 9/7 card, destroy all damaged minions. So definitely there's value here. If you can combo it with other warrior cards, then yes, this card has a lot of potential. It's a good pick if you can combo it. Now next for Druid, we have Tortolian Forager. Now this minion is good enough mainly because it adds a random minion with 5 or more attack. 5 or more attack into your hand, so the value is mainly giving you another card. So yes, it's a good pick. Next is Verdant Longneck. So it's a 5 mana 5/4 with Adapt. Now knowing Adapt, of course, it can potentially have more stats on it, so it can be very, very good. So yes, definitely a good pick. Next is the 4 mana 3/3 Shell Shifter, so it can transform into a 5/3 Stealth or a 3/5 Taunt. For the cost and the effect, it's good enough, so it's definitely a not bad pick. Lastly, we have Tarantus. It's a 10 mana 12/12, can't be targeted by hero power or spells. So yeah, I mean, for me, I would pick it. It really depends on what other legendaries are offered, but this is not a bad pick. And lastly, we have Shaman. So we have Primal Fin Totem. I would almost always pick this card because of the value that it can give. It's a 0/3 taunt for 2 cost, and it summons Murlocs. So the value is there, so I would definitely pick it. Next would be Volcano. So definitely a very good AoE card. Definitely pick it. Deals 15 damage, randomly split all over amongst all minions. It's a good card. Pick it out. Next would be Air Elemental. So I like this card. I like the way they did this card. So it's a 1 mana 2/1 card. Can't be targeted by hero spells or hero powers. It has good staying power, especially if you drop it the first turn. Not many classes can take it out. Probably only Rogue or Druid can take it out at turn 2. But for the rest, they'll be forced to trade with this card. Next would be Hot Spring Guardian. Mainly because for the cost, the value stat, and the effect. So it's pretty good. It's a taunt or taunt with a restored 3 health effect, so it can have some potential value trade-offs with your enemy. So yes, it's a good pick. And lastly, we have Kalamos, the Primal Lord. Again, you need to have elemental combinations synergy with this card before you pick Kalamos. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the full potential of Kalamos, the Primal Lord. But if you do have elementals and you can trigger the effect, then definitely this card is well worth it. And so that's it from my Arena Guide on Ungoro Cards. Hopefully the video helped you out. And if you did enjoy the content, please do leave a like and subscribe. And if not, there's the dislike button there that you can press. Please also leave comments and suggestions for my next video or anything that you want me to discuss. And again, thanks for dropping by and watching my video. Hope to see you again next time. Tear out.